So even though this flip video is titled The Eve of Independence, I think it's really important to understand that independence still wasn't much of a thought on many colonists' mind. Like I ended the last flip video with, nearly a year passed between the battles of Lexington and Concord and the skirmishes that led to General Howe abandoning Boston. So in that year, there was actually very little talk of independence between colonists, between delegates, and that sort of thing. And also, many colonists still considered themselves fairly loyal British subjects. Many believed the quarrel, or the tension, was not with Great Britain itself, but instead it was with the policies, which would be the taxes and the acts, that Great Britain was enforcing on the colonies. So it wasn't directly at Great Britain. It was more with the government and the taxes and that sort of thing. There were still fairly good relationships between these two at this time. I think this is best highlighted by what was called the Olive Branch Petition. So the Second Continental Congress, they sent a petition to King George III of Great Britain, asking him to make peace with the colonies. This was almost a call for, hey, we know some conflicts are going on. We want to try to resolve this so it doesn't lead to a really big war. And this was known as the Olive Branch Petition. By the time the petition actually reached the king, King George had already declared the colonies a rebellion, and that they needed to bring the traitors to justice, and those are directly quoted, and those are what the king said. So he didn't even really pay attention to this Olive Branch Petition, because he knew of the battles, he knew of the tension that was going on in the colonies, and really it was his loss, because he had a chance to make peace with the colonies and kind of do this diplomatically, not with a war. So right here is an image of the Olive Branch Petition. As you can see, it's fairly hard to read, especially with the fancy cursive writing. But this was pretty much asking the king for peace, to talk diplomatically about the situations that were going on. You can see on the right-hand side, right here, Sam Adams had signed this. John Adams had signed this as well. Those are a couple of names that you should recognize, and those were devout patriots, and they wanted to still make peace with this. So like I said, many colonists thought fairly negatively about the idea of independence, except for the devout patriots. Thomas Paine, actually, he was one of the delegates and one of these patriots, and he actually published a pamphlet titled Common Sense. This pamphlet was very much dedicated to persuading colonists about the idea of independence. And overall, Common Sense did actually do that, and it persuaded colonists that America should become independent. Paine stated that the colonists did not owe any loyalty to King George, and he was fairly adamant about this. He argued that ties to Great Britain did not benefit the colonists at all, and they would actually be better off serving themselves, not serving the Great Britain Empire. He also goes on to argue that they had suffered under Great Britain's control and been dragged into their European wars when they were a whole ocean away, and they didn't need to kind of dwell on those wars and dwell on that debt that Great Britain had because of their fighting. So within a few months of the publishing of Common Sense, over 12,000 copies were printed and read in the colonies. And this is really important because this is how news is going to spread the quickest during this time period. When you print something as a mass amount, and it goes to everyone in the colonies, and they can read and see it, and then people can talk about it, and it can then spread by word of mouth. So now, after the publishing of Common Sense, the idea of independence was a lot brighter now, and many colonists actually started to believe that this may be a good thing for the colonies, and yeah, maybe Great Britain wasn't so good after all, even though they're considered the best and largest empire in the world during this time.